Alright, welcome to your Chapter 2 review video. So if you needed help, this is going to go through the key of all of it. Okay, so on this one, we have both negatives and positives, so I need 0 somewhere in the middle. So it's going to jump from negatives to positives. I think I can just count by ones, so I'm just going to start with -5. So this tick mark is -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm going to plot -2. 4, 3, and -5, which is down here. And that's it. Okay, now this one I'm going to look at, I'm going to see which one has the most negatives, and that would be -63. So that's where it's going to go at the very end here. But I'm going to think what's a little bit lower than -63, and that'd be -70-ish. But if I count at 70 and I go by tens, because I have to go up to +73, it'll be -70, -60, -50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 0, 10, 20, 30. I won't get there. So I'm actually going to start at -80 and then count by 20s. So 80 minus 20 is 60. So this will be -60 because we're going to count backwards, count up to 0. 60 minus 20 would be 40, so -40. 40 minus 20 would be -20. -20 minus 20 would be 0. Now I'm going to add on 20s. So this would be 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. So I'm going to start with plotting -63. Or actually I'm going to start at 28 because that makes more sense. So 28 is a little bit just past the 20, not quite halfway. -15 is before the -20 because it's between 0 and -20. 73 is between 60 and 80. It's a little bit past halfway because it's a little bit past 70. Halfway would be 70, so a little bit past would be 73. -54 would be between 40 and 60, negative, so it's going to be a little bit closer to -60. And -63 would be right after -60, towards that -80. Okay, now when you compare with negatives and positives, I will always think which one is closer to 0. So -98 and 56, well in this case we have a negative and a positive. Positives are always bigger. Okay, something to remember on this means greater than, and this means less than. Okay, so a negative is less than the positive. So here at -72 and -18, I want to think which one's closer to this 0, so that it's closer to the positives. -72 would be further away. If I look just up here, I'm not going to mark it, but it'd be over here, while -18 would be closer to that 0. So -18 is bigger, so -72 is less than -18. Last one, -738 and -1029. So which one would be closer to 0? And that would be -738. So that one is greater than -1,200 or -1,029. Okay, number 4. I want to start, when I list these from least to greatest, I'm going to start with my negative numbers. So I have -18, -38, and -76. So I'm going to think which one of those is the furthest away from 0. Okay, and the one furthest away from 0, which one has the most negatives, that'd be 76. Okay, so that one's gone. So now between these two negatives, which one is further from 0? Or which one has more negatives? And that'd be 38. So -38. Okay, then our next negative amount would be -18. Okay, now I'm going to do my positives least to greatest. So I have 49, 98, and 39. 39 is my smallest, so that comes next. Then would be 49, that comes next. And then my greatest number here is 98. So notice I have negatives first, then my positives. Negatives first, then positives. Okay, on the bottom here, we're going to evaluate the following expressions. So if they are the same signs, we add. If they are different, we are going to subtract. So with this one, we have -12 plus -6, so they're both negatives, so they're the same, which means we are going to add them. So 12 plus 6, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18, and I keep the sign, so it's going to stay -18. Okay, number 6, I have a positive and a negative. So they're different. So I'm actually going to subtract. If I need to write it down, I can. 18 minus 12. 8 minus 2 is 6. 1 minus 1 is nothing. So I'm going to get 6. And I think, did I have more positives or did I have more negatives? I have 18 positives. I have 12 negatives. So I have more positives. So it's going to be positive 6. Okay, number 7. Again, I have positives and negatives. So I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to do 34 minus 23. 4 minus 3 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. So I get 11. Now I want to think, do I have more positives or do I have more negatives? I have 23 positives, 34 negatives. So I have more negatives. So it'll be negative 11. Okay, now on numbers starting at number 8 and 9, I want to think about adding the opposite. Okay, what opposite means is it's going to go from either a positive to a negative or a negative to a positive. So that's my mental note to help me remember what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm going to keep this 9. That's my starting point. I'm going to change the subtracting to adding. And then before I write the next number, I'm going to think opposite. So this is a negative 15. So negative changes to a positive. So it's going to be a positive 15. Then we just have 9 plus 15. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So positive 24. Okay, number 9, same idea. I'm going to keep the negative 14. That's my starting point. Change the subtracting to adding, because I'm going to add the opposite. So now think opposite. This is currently a positive 7. So I'm going to change it to a negative 7. So negative 14 plus negative 7. They're both negative, so they're the same. So I'm going to add them. 14 plus 7. If I don't know how to do that, I can write it out over here. So 4 plus 7 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I'm going to get a negative 21 because they're both negative. So number 10. Again, I'm going to change that to adding the opposite. So I have negative 21. I change the subtracting to adding. Instead of a negative changes to a positive. So I'm going to write positive 14. Now I have a negative and a positive. They're different. So when they're different, I subtract. So I'm going to do 21 minus 14. I have to borrow. So 11 minus 4. So 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So I get 7, and I want to think, did I have more positives or more negatives? I had 21 negatives, and that's more than 14. So it would be negative 7. Okay, number 11. Again, I'm going to have 7. Change subtracting to adding. The opposite of 25, it's a positive, so I'm going to make it a negative. So negative 25. So now I have a positive and a negative. It's different, so I'm going to subtract. So 25 minus 7. So this becomes a 1. So I have 15 minus 7 is 8. Carry down the 1 and I get 18. I'm going to think, did I have more positives or more negatives? And in this case, I had more negatives, so negative 18. Okay, number 12. I have both subtracting and adding, so I'm going to work left to right. So I'm going to rewrite this first, changing that subtracting. So I'm going to write 5, change the subtracting to adding. The opposite of a negative is a positive, so positive 8 plus 17. Now I just add left to right, and these are all positive, so it should be pretty straightforward. So 5 plus 18 is 13, plus 17 would give me 30. Okay, number 13. I'm going to start by changing the subtracting to adding the opposite. So I'm going to say 14, change subtracting to adding. Opposite of positive 26 is negative 26. Because this is in parentheses, I'm going to do this first. So I have a positive and a negative, so I'm going to subtract. So over here I'm going to say 26 minus 14. 6 minus 4 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 2. So that's going to be 12. And I have more negatives, so negative 12. Okay, now I'm going to bring down this negative 8 and the plus. So I just bring that straight down there. Okay, so negative 8 plus negative 12, they're both negative, so they're the same. When they're the same, I can just add them. So 8 plus 12 is 20. And they are both negative, so it's going to stay negative 20. Okay, number 14. I'm going to start in these very inside brackets here. So I'm going to change that subtracting to adding the opposite. So that's going to be 12. Change subtracting to adding. Opposite of a negative 14 would be a positive 14. So 12 plus 14 is going to be 26. And I'm just going to add on, we're going to go to these parentheses now. So I have 22 minus 26. That's in parentheses. So I'm going to change that subtracting to adding the opposite. So I'm going to have 22, change subtracting to adding. Opposite of a positive 26 is a negative 26. So since they're different, I'm going to subtract. 26 minus 22 is 4. And I have more negatives, so negative 4. Now I haven't done this 7 or this minus 6 on the end. So I'm going to say 7 plus there, and then minus 6. I go left to right, so I'm going to start with 7 plus negative 4. Since one's positive and one's negative, they're different, so I subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3. I have more positives, so I'm going to keep it positive. So 3 minus 6. I'm going to change that subtracting to adding the opposite, so 3. Change subtracting to adding. Opposite of a positive 6 is a negative 6. So now they're different, so I'm going to subtract. 6 minus 3 is 3. And I have more negatives, so negative 3. Okay, last one on the front side here. I'm going to replace the j with 12. I'm going to replace this k with a negative 2. All right, so I have 16 plus, instead of j, I'm going to write 12 minus parenthesis, k is negative 2 plus negative 13. So I have to start in the parentheses. So they're the same, they're both negatives. I'm going to add them. 2 plus 13 is 15. They're both negative, so it stays negative 15. I'm going to bring everything else down, straight down. So 16 plus 12, bring this down, minus. Okay, so I'm going to change to, we actually add left to right, so I can start with 16 plus 12. That's going to be 28. Now I'm going to change this as I go. So instead of saying minus, I'm going to say plus. Instead of a negative, negative changes into a positive, so positive 15. And that's going to be 43, I think. All right, backside. All right, backside. So here, these are both w's, so I can add them or put them together. But I have subtracting, so I'm still going to change it. So it's going to be 6w, change subtracting to adding. Opposite of a negative 11 would be a positive 11w. So if I have 6w's plus 11w's, I just add the coefficients, the numbers next to the letters, the variables, and 6 plus 11 is 17. So 17w. Okay, number 17. The only thing I can combine is this x and this x. This does not have an x, so it's just going to stay by itself. So if I have 7 x's and I add 16 more, I'm going to get 23 x's minus 9. And that is it. All I did was add the 7 and the 16. Okay, number 18. I'm going to start by drawing my line down the equal side. I want to get this p by itself. So if I look on the same side as that p, I need to get rid of this negative 12. To undo adding a negative 12, I add a positive 12. So I do it to both sides. So negative 12 plus 12 is 0. Plus, I bring down the p. And now these are both positive, so I can just add them. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. So p equals 33. Okay, number 19. I'm going to start by changing that subtracting. So I'm going to say h, change the subtracting to adding. Instead of a positive 17, I'm going to say negative 17 equals negative 21. So to get rid of adding a negative, just like how we got rid of adding negative 12, I added a positive 12. To get rid of adding a negative 17, I'm going to add a positive 17 to both sides. So I bring down the h, plus a negative and a positive makes 0. Now if I have a negative and a positive, I subtract. So I'm going to make that a 1. 11 minus 7 is 4. Now I started with 21 negatives and 17 positives, so there's more negatives, so it's going to be negative 4. So h equals negative 4. Okay, number 20. Draw my line down the equal sign. I'm going to get rid of adding 32. So to undo adding a positive 32, I'm going to add on a negative 32. Bring the e down. Positive and a negative make 0. When I have a positive and negative, I subtract. And I have my bigger number on top right now, so that works out just fine. So I'm going to borrow. That becomes a 4. 14 minus, oh, I don't need to borrow. Ignore that, sorry. 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. And I had 54 positives, 32 negatives, so there's more positives. So I get E is 22. All right, last equation, number 21. I need to get G by itself, so I need to undo adding 9. So to undo adding a positive 9, I'm going to add a negative 9. If I do it to one side, I do it to the other. 9 plus negative 9 is 0. Bring down the G. Negative and a negative, they're the same, so I just add. So 9 plus 6 is 15, carry the 1, so that'd be 45. Negative 45. So G is negative 45. Alright, so then the last one is number 22. First thing we're going to do is number our coordinate plane. So it starts at 0. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Noticing I'm labeling on the lines. That's the most important part here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then to the left it's going to be negative, so negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. And then down we do the same thing. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. So remember, this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. So my first number tells me move right and left. The second number tells me to go up and down. So I'm going to go right 5. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, down 2. 1, 2. And there's M. Okay. N tells me to go right 3. So I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3, up positive 1. And there's my N. Negative 4, negative 3. So this means go left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 3. 1, 2, 3. There's P. And then the last one is negative 1, 4. So I'm going to go left 1 and then up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's R. All right, I hope you do well on your test.